there, Shawna Karrasch coming to you with another Ask Shawna answer from Villanova in New Mexico, Santa Fe. Anyway, so this question is from Emily, and Emily says, my daughter's in 4-H. She needs to learn how to turn her horse on the hindquarters, both in hand and while in the saddle. That is, her horse's hind feet need to remain stationary while her front feet move in order to complete a 180-degree turn. We are stumped at this. Meridia, the horse, does know how to target with her nose. We use targeting to teach trailer loading. However, if we use a target for this hindquarter exercise, her back legs move. I suggested that she have her stand against a corral panel so that she is more likely to move her front end and not her hind end to touch the target. However, my daughter said that Merida does not like to be cornered at all. I was wondering if you had any suggestions on how to teach this. Thanks in advance. Okay, Emily, and the using your environment to minimize, or encourage certain actions is actually really good thinking. But certain horses don't like to be cornered, don't like to be against a wall, they don't like, those pieces can feel rather confining for them. So what I would think of in a separate thing, I would definitely think, well, I want her to be okay being able to be in a corner and not feel cornered, but feel safe and trusting in a corner. That's not right now. I'm not saying deal with that right now, but in my head, that's that's something I need to work on. Or if I feel like a horse they feel kind of funny being near the wall with me on the other side, I want to slowly build up and get them confident with that. And so I would start from far away and then get a little closer and a little closer until they're comfortable with that and they can trust me, because you never know when those things might pop up. So if that feeling cornered can actually come into play, sometimes at places you don't know. So it's always a good thing to address. That's a side issue, not that we're going to deal with it today, but it was a great suggestion. I would even put her in a corner where you could just ask her to, I think that's kind of what you're saying. And I think that that's a great idea, but you have that other issue first. And that may be not what you really want to deal with right yet, but I would get to it at some point. Okay. So the other thing, about moving just the head and not the hind feet. Sometimes I found that getting a small hula hoop, or sometimes you can find hoops in like gymnastic exercises, and they'll have these flat plastic hoops you can put on the ground. Teaching her to keep her feet in that hoop can be a good way to go. So it kind of can be a concept, like I keep my feet within these parameters. So it gives a little bit more clarity. Now, it doesn't mean she's going to get that, because she's going to be like, I just step on it, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But it's something that as you get a little bit more activity, sometimes that can help her to think about her hind end. Because one of the things that I find is I want them to be aware of the different parts. Like if I have a horse who won't stand square and I need to move those back feet to kind of get the feet into position, I want them thinking about their back feet, because it's the back feet with that horse that tend to have the problem. So I want them thinking, where are my feet when I get that click? And I can do that by dealing with the back legs a bit, by asking her to put her hind end, her back legs in a hoop, and it can be a bigger hoop and you can make it to a smaller hoop. I mean, you can get, soft piping from like tubing, and even make one and then make it smaller and smaller and smaller, but gets the idea to keep the hind feet in. And sometimes just having that hoop back there can make them go, what's going on back there? There's something back there. So that can help. But basically, what I have found when I want to teach this, I just go for much, 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 much smaller steps. So at first it is get them lined up with the feet in the hoop. So there's some cognitive thinking there. Get the feet in the hoop. Okay, we're standing. Okay, now target. And just it's small enough where it's just their head targeting, and just their head targeting, and just their head targeting. And then I move it a little bit where it's just going to be lean on the outside shoulder, head target. Lean on the outside shoulder, head target. And then till it is the smallest step. It's such a small step that it doesn't even encourage the whole body to move. you know what I mean, that's just right there, and they think, well, I just need to reach a little bit. So by going in smaller steps, I found I can set them up for success with the back end, and I can, and it takes a little bit for them to put the dots together, but I found the hoop can help to put the dots together, and then just having it when they can just touch a little bit till it's the smallest little front foot moving inches, you know, like they're like, well, I just need to go a little bit. And, you know, it's not big enough that it encourages the back movement. And I would go in both directions with that. So they get the idea. So once I get the little teeny tiny step in this direction, I reinforce them and a lot. Reinforcing a lot is really important. And then I'll go back over this way. So it's a little teeny tiny step back. Tiny. You know, so that is where I really started to get it. Now, there's some point that I start to get a little bit bigger, and they try moving with their back end. And I just say, yeah, well, that I'm not going to reinforce that one. Let's go back to the little step in the little step. So it is slowly getting them to move those little feet over. Another thing I did with one horse, the horse was having a harder time getting it. So I made sure they're really good with me picking up their feet and manipulating their feet. So I picked the foot up and I moved the foot over like 6 inches and then set it back down. Maybe it's 4 inches and set it back down. And then when they waited it to come to get the food, I reinforced that. Then I picked that other foot up and went back the other direction. So I manually did it for them because everything seemed to be too big. You know, every little piece seemed to be, it was giant or not. So I manually said, can I just move it over a little bit? And can I move it over a little bit? And as they start to get the idea, then it goes, there's like a cusp in there. You know, there's a point where I'm having a hard time with this. And I'm not sure, I'm not clear, but I'm getting something right. And so their little brain is starting to think. And the more you've taught with positive reinforcement, the more problem solver they are. So they start thinking, there's an answer in here somewhere. I need to pay attention. What piece is working? So remember, so teaching more things with positive reinforcement sometimes helps them, well, definitely helps them to be better at problem solving and realize there's an answer in here somewhere. I got to pay attention and think about what it could be, because now you have them paying really close attention to the bridge. And I think the important part to click in there, the important part to bridge, is the moving, when the front foot is just moving. So it's not once they've done it and they've stopped. In the very beginning, I take just the 1 foot moving. So they get the idea that that's the part, but it's such a small step that nothing else is moving besides that 1 foot. So that clicking on that 1 foot moving starts to be the beginning, because at first it's usually the outside foot. Sometimes, you know, you have some step over, but typically it's the outside step first, and then the leading foot first, I guess we'll say, and then the other foot follows. In the very beginning, I said, just think about this 1 foot. That's all. And then I start saying, now let's think about that other foot. And then, you know, if they have times when they do much moving in there, then I just go, okay, well, let's stop for a minute. Other thing I think about is my substrate. What kind of surface am I working on? Is it easy for their feet to move in that? You know, if you're standing on a rubber mat, that's hard because the foot actually can be a little stuck in place. So the hind feet can't just kind of rotate with you as easily or pivot so easily. So I be sure that I'm on something that the back feet without moving can accommodate the front end moving. Okay. And then you just got to fiddle with it a little bit and figure out what can help this horse. And I always think, is there any point in time when it happens naturally? This isn't one that typically does, but maybe, you know, you've seen him when he goes to get his hay or whatever, because you can click those times too, or create that situation within the learning environment. Okay, so Emily, I hope that helps you and your daughter. You know, it's just a way of thinking, because our only limitation with this training is our creativity. There's a way to train anything, to get through anything. It's up to us to figure out the creativity, and then also, is it going to be worth my time? You know, sometimes there's things I'm like, yeah, you can fix this, but it may take a year. And then they're like, no, I just want a new horse now, or whatever. You know, there's people that just really aren't wanting to go the distance with the steps it takes. So there you go. That's a little thinking for you, a little food for thought. And if you have more questions, and as you get going, or or maybe this maybe even had you think, well, what else could I do? Could I do this or could I do that? Don't hesitate to get a hold of me again. We're really trying to get the Ask Shawna answers back up and at them. So there's kind of a little lapse in there as we're getting organized out here at Villanova. But now we are really trying to get back to answering the questions promptly. So anyway, I hope that helps you. And like I said, if you have more questions, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. You know how to get a hold of me, but some people may not. What you want to do is go to shawnakarrasch.com, which is also linked to the villanovatraining.com, and you will find on the Shawna Karrasch part, you will find something that says Ask Shawna. It's a tab there. If you click that tab, you'll find a form where you can fill out your question and submit it, and it will get to it. Alrighty, so I hope that helps you, and there you go. I guess that's all I got right now. Anyway, until next time, and bye-bye.